Well, this is a slideshow that myself or one of the nursing faculty, we do this probably at least twice a year on campus. So if you should need to view it again, watch for information from the nursing program of when it's being held. And we've been doing it by Zoom. And we were doing it in person. When we get back to campus, I imagine we'll be doing it on purpose. I'm not on purpose. on campus. Anyway, so this is more or less the information we share with every student as they're interested in coming on to the program. So you can go to the next slide. Registered nursing today, I think probably all of you know that nursing is a very popular profession at this point in time. Again, we get very high salaries. Upon graduation, our graduates often make more money than us right away out of the market. And in today's world, they're paying a lot of overtime. And again, the job market, they expect to have, UCSF does a lot of research. They expect to have 40,000 new registered nursing jobs in the next 5 years. So it will be a very hot market for a while to come. You guys see somebody. So we can go to the next slide. Again, it's a hot job at the moment. Again, you really do need to think about why you want to become a nurse. And these are some things from the past. You can see that this is from 2008. I don't know that it's changed too terribly much, but kind of, again, what is your driving force to be a nurse? And do you have a very realistic expectation from the job? So again, a lot of people have a passion to care for others. A lot of people have a nurse in their life who's inspired them, or a relative who was ill in their life and the nurse did a wonderful job taking care of their loved one, and they're, again, say to themselves, I want to be a nurse because that really inspired me. They think it's a good job. The pay is good. If I would not suggest anybody go into nursing because of pay. Again, we do get paid a lot of money, so that's very attractive to a lot of people. That should not be the attracting force. If you hate it, they can't pay you enough to do it. It is more or less I can't say dirty job, but really we come across a lot of bacteria and a lot of sick people. They throw up on you, they spit on you, you get all body secretions on you. I've had nurses before nursing school. They'll say, I have to touch people. And he's like, well, yes, you do have to touch people. So if touching people is something you really can't imagine yourself doing, then this really isn't the profession for you. There's a lot of professions that are carrying professionals that don't really have to do the kinds of things that nursing does. So, and once you become a nurse, you can kind of move away from some of the areas in nursing that maybe you don't like. You can go into surgery, where you never have to talk to your patient if talking to people is not something you like, but you really kind of like the scientific end of nursing. But really do think our program is very popular, and all the programs are popular. This year we had this last application, we just filled a class. We met our incoming students about a week ago, and we accept 40 students every semester, and we had 440 applicants. So only about less than 10% of the people come or are admitted into our program. So when we get somebody who in the first week says something to us like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I had to touch people, we're thinking, well, there's one of those 440 people who didn't get in, or 400 didn't get in. They could have gotten in if somebody would come to the recognition that, again, this is not really the profession I want. And again, if the only reason you want to do it is to get a good, solid job with a good salary, that would be a big mistake. Again, you will learn to hate it. And nursing school is very, very difficult. So again, just think very hard about what it is that is appealing to you in this job. Okay, next slide. This is a slide, again, that's kind of reminding you that nursing is not what it's like on TV. TV shows portray nursing to be quite different, and every TV show has romanticizes the aspects of any one person's job. But in nursing, again, it really does kind of minimize. They really maximize the love interests of nurses on TV, but they really minimize the roles, the responsibilities, the long and unusual working hours. Nurses are working 12-hour shifts. They're asked to work overtime. They're sometimes, and they're forced to take time off sometimes and not get paid for it. It's a tough job. Again, you've really got to like it. And again, there was a saying by this Mary Bailone that said, being a nurse is inside every cell of our being, which means for those of us who are in the profession, it really is who we are. We're a nurse for life. I got together with 5 nurses the other day that I've met in 1979. And again, we got together last weekend for dinner and it was great, but those were the people I started my career with in jobs. And we had a great time, and we had a great time working together. So it can be a very close-knit group of people that you work with, and you really can enjoy it, but you really have to be ready for long, hard work shifts. And again, a lot of demands put on you, and stressful. I think the COVID days, again, and I remember I was a cardiac intensive care nurse for a long time, and when your patients are dying, you have a patient who dies every week, it takes its toll on you. So you've got to find some ways to cope with those types of things happening, because it's part of our everyday world and it's very stressful. So, okay, moving on. If you have had any kind of conviction, so if any kind of law infraction, so if you have anything other than a minor traffic violation, we have to report to the Board of Registered Nursing, and our licenses could be at risk. If people theft, so petty theft, there are many things, DUIs, if we have any kind of conviction with any kind of substance control, then again, we can have our licenses removed. And if you have these things coming into our nursing program, you may never get a license. So we tell people who might have any kind of conviction history that they need to contact the Board of Registered Nursing and look up. So again, for more information, go to that website, and it may list, certainly if you had a felony in your background, they will probably never allow you to be a nurse. But it kind of goes along with over our entire lives as a registered nurse, that we have to live above, well, I can't say it's above standard. I think it's probably, I would like to think it's normal to not get DUIs and all kinds of things that people do. But we do have a lot of people, and some people get through our program with some past offenses, and we can write letters on their behalf. But we're just saying with this slide to check into it yourself, because again, you don't want to do all the work. Some of you are getting ready to, again, take a few years of prerequisites to get into the nursing program. You don't want to go too far down that road and waste your time if at the end of the day, you will never become a licensed nurse because of a conviction history. So this is just a kind of a warning about that type of thing. Next slide. Our program is based on what we call the CUSIN competencies. So our program is based on what we call the knowledge that we have to do our job, the skills that we have to do our job. And something that's different than a lot of other occupations is our attitudes. Nurses, again, we're one of the most trusted occupations in America. We always come up on surveys that ask the general population that question. And nursing comes up as probably the number 1 or number 2 on a bad year of the most trusted professions. And that is because it is our attitudes. Hopefully, again, we're caring people, and that we are people who can be trusted. We take care of people, and they give us a lot of information that they do not share with other people in their lives, sometimes even their family members. But when we're taking care of somebody in a life and death situation, we need to know quite a bit about them. So again, we work very hard to establish a trusting relationship, and it's based on so genuinely caring about the patients as people first. So again, we're patient-centered. We do teamwork and collaboration. There's not too many nursing jobs that really are not based on teamwork and collaboration with others. As a registered nurse, physicians write orders. We follow orders. We're with patients 8-12 hours a day. Physicians walk in for 10 or 15 minutes during that day. We are the eyes and ears of that reports to the physician changes in a patient's condition so that new orders can be written. So it's an odd kind of job. We're like the middleman. We advocate for our patients very strongly. So sometimes we have to not argue with a physician, but we would certainly call a physician and encourage a patient to talk to their physician about things that they may otherwise be uncomfortable talking about. But we would advocate for them and what it is that they want to do. And sometimes that creates conflict. We're an evidence-based practice, meaning that there's a lot of research done that says one thing is effective and another thing is not effective. We hear a lot about these days with COVID. We have the saying, you hear it a lot, that says we follow the science. Well, we truly do follow the science in nursing. And that is that the things that we do have been researched, and there's evidence to support that it does make a difference in the care of our patients. Quality improvement is really about the issue of looking at what we're doing and looking at the errors or things that kind of go wrong and saying, how can we do better? Through the nursing program, as a student nurse, you're in the clinical situation. We spend 18 hours a week in the hospital while you're in nursing school with us. You will make mistakes. We ask that you reflect on every mistake that you make in our program. We point out to you and we ask you to reflect on the implications of that mistake. So again, what could you have done to avoid making that mistake again? What led to the mistake in the first place? And what was the potential negative outcome to your patient? So again, that it's a big job. Safety is our bottom line. We expect every nursing student to be safe. We can never accept unsafe practices, there's very few people, I believe, who make mistakes on purpose. But so the mistakes we made not on purpose still can carry some heavy ramifications. So safety is our bottom line. You can pass our nursing courses with an A, but if you're not providing safe care in the hospital, we will still fail you. We have to, because we have what we call an applied science. An applied science says I learn things and then I go to the bedside and I apply the knowledge that I have and the skills that I have safely at the bedside. If I can't apply my knowledge and skills safely, then it's really all for nothing. So that's pretty upsetting to students, and that's a different kind of approach that, again, you could be getting an A in our courses, but if you're not providing safe patient care at the bedside, we will fail you from the program. So that is something that's probably new for people. Informatics is, again, we use computer-based systems. We use a lot of information, nothing too much with that. But again, this is kind of the outline of what we do, how we approach your education in nursing school. Okay, go to the next slide. So our program, I hope, again, I hear that you're all taking, I guess you're all signing up for prerequisites. Is that where these students are?
For the most part, yes.
Yeah, okay. So you know that American River College, we offer an associate degree in science, and our program is a 2-year nursing program, and that's once you get into the program. So it's kind of a misrepresented in a sense, because again, you're probably taking at least 2 years almost of prerequisites to get into our 2 years of nursing school, which makes it almost a 4-year program, which does make it close to a 4-year program. We do have relationships with California State University, Sacramento, and University of Phoenix, and a few other private colleges where students can obtain their bachelor's degrees within 6 months to a year after graduating with us. And they take summers in the summertime with those schools, and some of them during their breaks. So really within 6 months to a year after you leave our program, you really should be able to pick up your bachelor's degree, which is a very nice bridge that is kind of new, and it's probably been close to, I think it's about maybe 7 years now. So that's good. But when you're taking your prerequisites, also be looking at your graduation requirements from American River College. Sometimes we get students, mostly transfer students. You really have to work with the counselors to make sure that you're going to be able to graduate from the college. You can complete our program and not graduate from the college if you don't take the right courses. So you have to take the general education requirements that are required by American River College to get that Associate of Science degree, as well as complete our program. And then you'll have an associate degree of nursing. And that's what you need for jobs. So again, you can take the licensure, but you can't. To take your licensure, you have to graduate from the college, and nobody will give you a job if you completed our nursing program, but really didn't take that 1 unit of PE that you needed. And so the 1 unit of PE is something that people like, oh, they must be joking about that. I just want to become a nurse. It's not, they're not joking about it. You need to take those 1 unit classes. Again, we tell you, take yoga. You're going to need to learn to relax and get some stress, deal with stress. So do something that helps you, again, cope with stress. And try to take all of your prerequisites. We have a few sociology and anthropology that we say can be co-requisites. It's very difficult to take any co-requisites and take a nursing course at the same time. The last year, during COVID, it was a really tough struggle for our students, and our students are still really reeling from that time. Our normal pass rate, we will always have some failures pretty much in every course, and it's very devastating to our students. A lot of our students come into our program being straight A students, or again, GPA is very high, and they really do struggle, and it takes a lot of time. You have to study a lot to be successful in the program, and that's kind of just the way it is. So when you graduate from nursing school, you have to take the NCLEX. That's the National Council of Licensure exam. And it's given by the state of California, and you have to pass that to get your licensure. So again, you can go all the way through our program and never pass the NCLEX test, and you will not become a nurse. So it's not as straightforward as a lot of other occupations that, again, I graduate from college, I have a degree, and I go get a job. There's a few different pieces in there that are very critical to you or becoming, again, a nurse. We do have a very solid pass rate on the NCLEX. We're probably anywhere on the low side, probably 85%, and on the high side, probably, close to 100%. So we look at the people who are graduating they normally take our graduates take the NCLEX exam kind of twice a year. That you can take it at any time really now. But we kind of look at those results, and it's posted on the website. So every nursing school posts their NCLEX pass rates through the BRN website. So you can go in if you're interested in going to schools other than American River College. I would encourage you to go to the BRN website and look at the NCLEX pass rate for those schools and make sure that they're good pass rates. Okay, we can go on. So again, we've kind of talked about this. We prepare our graduates to work to get licensed by passing the NCLEX. So I have like a frog in my throat this morning. You can work in a variety of healthcare settings. Again, that's kind of also what I would consider the wonder of nursing. Again, it's been a great profession for me over my lifetime. I worked in the hospital setting for close to 20 years before I came into education. And I worked in ICUs. I worked in a business office with a computer installation company installing software for the nurses to use. I've worked in, again, research. I've done many different things. So you can get a job almost any day of the week doing any variety of things you would want to do. So you should never be bored in nursing. I get a little impatient when I hear nurses complain about their jobs, because I think, well, go get a different one, because there's lots of them out there. If you really love children, you can go to work in pediatrics. If you really love labor and delivery, you can go where, you know, women are having babies and very family-centered care. If you really like to help people with addiction or any of those kinds of things, we have mental health. We have many, many different areas of practice. So really, it's a very good profession in that way. Our options are limitless. But our solid foundation and our backbone to nursing is medical surgical nursing. So what we prepare you for in our program is to be a safe entry-level practitioner with a focus on med surg. You do have a rotation in pediatrics, you have a rotation in obstetrics and labor and delivery, you have a focus on mental health. So we have those three specialties that we teach within our program, but our major emphasis is in medical surgical nursing. Okay, next slide. This is a slide I hope that you've seen. This is from our website, and these are our prerequisite courses that you must take. And now some of these courses have prerequisites for them. I think the bio, the AMP and micro, I think you have to take general chemistry and some. So some of these courses have prerequisites before you can get into these courses. And then you see that anthro down there, 310, or sociology 300. Those say co-requisites, and the same one is public speaking. But again, try to get those courses taken before you get into the program, because it's a very hard struggle to take them at the same time. And public speaking, we used to have a course that's called general discussion as along with this public speaking. And the Board of Registered Nursing made us change this back to saying we really want people who can have some experience with public speaking. I have to tell you, that was the class probably I hated the most while I was in college. I think most people do hate it. I dreaded it, and here I am now teaching, and I can publicly speak without any problems. And I think the reason for me was that I feel like I now have something to say. And when I took that course, I thought, who would want to hear from me? And I think everybody feels that way. So we're rather shy by nature. But at the same time, nurses we advocate, we do a lot of outreach, and public speaking is something that will pay off in time. So as much as you dread it, kind of, again, get through it. And I think you know, hopefully by now too, that the grades in these courses, your prerequisite courses, they're very important. The GPA for the average student coming into our program, particularly in the science areas, again, you've seen our multi-screening criteria form, and if you haven't, it'll be coming up in a minute here. And again, you get different points for different GPAs. So your GPA, I think just a C in your general classes, but we want a GPA of B in your science classes. And that's not very easy either. I recommend to a lot of people, you know, a lot of you have got jobs and you've got families and you've got a lot going on in your lives. So if it takes you longer to get an A, take one class at a time, particularly the harder classes, the anatomy and physiology, the micro. Take those classes one at a time so you can get your A as best you can. Again, get as high grade as you possibly can, because it's tough to get in. Another class I would take if you're interested in, and really every nurse should be interested in getting a bachelor's degree at some point in time. So if you find yourself delayed or you just need a good challenge, take statistics as well along with these classes, because you would need it to go on for your BS degree. And American River College offers some good statistics classes, and they are accepted by the Sac State and the other colleges where you're going to pay a lot more money to take that statistics class than you would if you take it at ARC. So if you're kind of caught up and you're waiting to get into the program, then again, take stats. That will serve you well. And then the bottom 4 classes are the 4 classes that you take when you're in our program, the Nurse 400, 410, 420, and 430. And you can see they're only 10.5 units. The Board of Registered Nursing really doesn't want us to make them very many units. They really discourage the community college system from having too many units to get a nursing degree, but it isn't necessarily a full load. So that's another thing that can be problematic from students. What I would do and encourage people is to sign up for RAD, Reading Across the Discipline, and you can get unit value for taking your information over to RAD and studying with them. And that is a very nice practical thing that you can do. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Our clinical sites, again, we really don't have anybody in the Sutter system right now. We're primarily using Dignity Health locations, and those are the Mercy hospitals. So Mercy General, Mercy Folsom, Mercy San Juan, Mercy Methodist. We're using Kaiser Morris and Kaiser Roseville. We're really not using Shriners at the moment, but we have students in rotations and it changes every semester. And sometimes in 3rd semester, you would have 3 different rotations. No, I guess that's 2nd semester. You'd have 3 different rotations. Again, Med Surg, OB, and Peds. So again, you're in 3 different kind of sections and it changes. So sometimes you'll be going in the morning, sometimes you'll be going in the afternoon, and sometimes in weekends. So again, you have to be open to change, and we do what we can to get everybody through, but it's difficult. It's very hard on families because as a student, you need to really dedicate your time and energy. So if you have been the primary person in your home for cooking, cleaning, and childcare, you really have to make arrangements for all of those things to get covered, or at least to be shared highly with the other people in your family to be successful. Because if you can't give enough time to this program, you will not be successful. And a lot of people who fail, they fail because of their attention having to go elsewhere. And your family does deserve to be number 1 in your lives. We don't say that, but if they take too much attention, then you're going to have trouble. So you have to almost make a deal with your loved ones to say, we have to share in the family responsibilities. And it's very difficult. You kind of get your children of school age to sit down and study when you sit down and study, so that, again, everybody gets their study time in. And we ask that you might make a calendar so your family is very aware of when you're going to be studying, and put in that I spend an hour or so with my family every day of dedicated time. But if you make a calendar and plan it all out, then everybody is much more inclined to kind of know what's going on, and a little less friction in the family. So, but the clinical sites, again, we get to hospital sometimes at 5:30 in the morning and we get off at 3, or in 4th semester, I know they're doing 12-hour shifts at Mercy General. So they're 6 in the morning until, 7 to 7, basically. So it's a tough, it's very tough on families. Okay, let's go on. Again, this is the time requirement. Each of our courses has 4.5 hours of lecture. We've changed the word from lecture to seminar. We try to have as highly of engaging an environment for learning as possible. So 4.5 hours of lecture or seminar a week, plus about another 9 hours a week to study for and be prepared for those seminars. We have 18 hours in the hospital every week and about 9 hours of preparation for that time. So you can see it's a full-time job, 40.5 hours per week. And that does not include the time it takes you to drive to a hospital. And again, if you have any co-requisites or any other kinds of classes or obligations, it really, time becomes a big issue. But if you don't put in that kind of time, most likely you will not be successful. So a lot of students have got to work, and we really ask that if you're going to be working, that your job be very, very flexible. We have a lot of students who say, if you fail any class in any one of our, a test in any one of our courses, we have you write up a memo and explain basically why you failed the test, and have you, again, the purpose is to have you reflect on kind of what went wrong so that it won't be repeating. We really do want you to be successful. But a lot of them will say, well, I had to work last night. I had to work a double yesterday. My boss really needed somebody to fill in. And we say, well, you're going to probably have to make a decision if you're going to put your energy towards your future, or if you're going to keep being the good employee for your current boss. It's very tough because, again, you need to make money, you need to eat. So you really have to examine your life and say, what am I willing to give up to achieve this goal? Because it's hard. Okay, next slide. So we've talked about this again, you have to buy books. Our startup costs are about $3,000. And now I can tell you there are a lot of scholarship money out there, and particularly people in certain populations. So you might find, I know, Olga, we were talking a little bit about some of the refugees or some of the different groups who will, again, give scholarships for particular groups of students. So we would encourage every student to look for scholarships and financial aid to be successful, again, rather than work. I'm not somebody who believes in accruing debt. I do believe, however, that this is a debt that you will pay off quickly, because if you become a nurse, you will have the means to be able to pay that debt off. So it's a very worthwhile place to put your money and to potentially take out financial aid rather than work to be successful. When I have a student who fails, they don't take into account that if I'd been able to not have to repeat this class, I would have had a nursing license 6 months earlier than I otherwise will now. And in the future, going forward, we're going to only admit students once a year. We're going to admit them once a year, but we're going to fill a class for fall and for spring, but you're only going to be able to apply once a year. So if you miss a class 6 months, you can repeat a class one time. If you repeat one time, then you're successful, good. If you fail a second course, you are what we call a permanent exit, and you leave our program, and you're not, we do not admit you back into our program. So that's a lot of money. 6 months worth of a nursing salary could be, $50,000 easy. So they don't take into account how much they just lost, which is $50,000 in wages that you could have been working if you had graduated on time. So you really do need to take nursing school seriously in terms of the financial impact on your family. So you really need to look at, again, what am I willing to sacrifice now to make this successful and for me to enter and leave on time. Again, it's very stressful. We've talked about the shifting roles, responsibilities at home. Anyway, it's a very tough program. Okay, let's move on. American River College has a lot of support services. We have the health center on campus, and they're going to be open, I think, a few days a week this coming spring, which is very nice. We have DSPS programs and services. We have reentry programs for people who've been out of college and coming back into college. Again, financial aid. We have the Career Center, which will help you. We help you also in the 4th semester with resume development and things like that you might need to be able to get a job. And I talked about Reading Across the Disciplines, RAD. That's a wonderful program that has benefited many, many of our students who take their homework from the courses that they're enrolled in with us or any of your science classes. If you're struggling in any of your classes at American River College, I would go to RAD. Those people, one of the things they do is really help students to identify how they learn best. You know, again, are you an audio learner? You know, do you do good in the Zoom world? A lot of our students are not doing that great in the Zoom world. They like, you know, they need each other for support, and they need to really see the faculty when we're teaching with them. But again, I know that when I write something down, that's very powerful for me. I almost always need to write something down. And if I do, I can remember almost where I wrote it. But until I do that, I will not. It may go in one ear and out the other. So again, you have to figure out how you learn best. And again, I would encourage you to use RAD in your science classes. And again, you'll get extra units. And the extra units sometimes will be the key to you getting financial aid. Financial aid is sometimes based on you having a full load of units. So what's considered full time, and it's usually 12 units. We do have the Children's Center for Childcare Issues. And again, that is not as available to us as I would like it to be. And that's because we keep crazy hours. Our clinicals, you know, the Child Care Center is not open at 5:30 in the morning, but it is open if you had a family member who could take your children to the Child Care Center for part of the day. That sometimes will lessen the load for your family. So, and again, we have a picture of here. We say you can lead a horse to water, but we can't make them drink. So we can tell you about all these wonderful services we have available, but it really is up to the student to reach out. Another group that's not mentioned on here are our campus counselors. They are wonderful. They help our students. We ask that you get with a counselor and develop a curriculum planning sheet to make sure that the courses that you're taking are all in line and are going to go towards graduation. So we get those, and again, we track your education very carefully, and again, we work with those counselors. Also, the counselors, you know, they're all trained to be general counselors. They didn't all come into the world as academic counselors. They came in as social service type counselors, and they work with a lot of our students who are really struggling and help them to identify some of the barriers and issues and resolve some problems in their life and help with some stress management. So again, they're very very good resource to reach out to and use. So again, our counselors are not on here. I think there's a slide coming up that probably has counselors on it. We can go on. Counseling, see, look at, there it is. Again, they work very well, and we're coming when you soon this by fall for sure, and in spring they're developing a thing called Home Base. And Home Base says that there's a group of counselors at American River College with a specialty in each one of their areas. So health and education, our nursing program is part of the health and education division on our campus. And in the health and division, we have, again, the nursing program, we have CNAs, we have respiratory care, we have emergency medical technicians, we have paramedics, we have funeral services. So we have several different programs, and the counselors are really having a focus on all of the health and education programs, and they're going to be based over in our area of campus. So they're very close. When we all get back to campus, they'll be close so people can kind of walk in and not have to go across campus to find them. So they're very good. Okay, next slide. So here's the application process. It's online. We call it the SNAP online. So when you're ready to apply to nursing school, you will do it pretty much online. You have to have completed all of your prerequisites. They cannot be in progress. And again, what we're looking forward to starting this spring application period will be, we will accept applications late in spring, and what we will do then, we will select the students from that application. Again, this fall we had 440 applications. So if that's what we get in the spring, we will pick 40 students for our fall class, and then 40 students for the following spring class. So we will only be accepting and processing applications once a year in the spring, and we will fill them in the fall and spring class for those selections. So it's going to cause a little bit of a delay. Sac City has been doing this for a while, and most of the other programs are doing it this way as well. So it's a little bit of a change. And again, if you don't get in, what the implication is, you can't then apply again next semester. You're going to now have to wait a full year. We didn't do it for a long time because of that, but with so many applications, it is we spend a lot of time and energy. We go through every application. We have been going through every application. At this point in time, we are going to just randomize our selection and go through the applications for the people who get accepted into the program. It is a completely randomized selection at the end of the day. The randomized selection, though, is all based on qualified candidates. So that is a piece that kind of might go overlooked somehow. Okay, go ahead to the next slide. So this is the multi-screening criteria, and the multi-screening criteria is not something we developed. It was based on legislation, and I think it was the years about 2013. And what we did at American River College, I've been with American River College almost 20 years now. What we did is we looked back on 5 years worth of students, and we did research on who was the most successful student at American River College, so the multi-screening criteria, the legislation had the categories. What each college got to do was determine how many points each category was worth. So the research we did allowed us to make some informed decisions about where we should put our points. And we came to the conclusion that, again, so these are things we give points for. And previous academic degrees. So again, if you have an AA or an AS degree already, then you would get 5 points from that. It must be from an accredited United States college, and it must be posted on your transcript to receive the points. But so even the person who we have a lot of people who have bachelor's degrees from some pretty prestigious colleges at Berkeley, Davis, Irvine, some very good colleges. They still only get 5 points because we felt we wanted them to have an approved history of being able to learn. So that's where we put our points. But even if you have an associate degree, you get the same points as you would if you had a degree from Davis. Go ahead to the next slide. So here's the thing with the science GPA again. And so here are the courses that you need to do well in. The bio 430, 431, or 440, or 442. You need to have a minimum GPA of 3.0 in those courses. And there's a cutoff point between you'll get either 15 points in that category or 30 points. So I think it's about 3.5 is you get the 30 points. And that 30 points that's a big difference right there in terms of, again, who's going to be getting into the program. Okay, so it's pretty much you have to have above 70 points, I'm pretty sure. In the non-science category, it's the English, nutrition, and psych GPA that we're looking at, and you'll get either 5 points, I think 5, 10, or 15. I think that's broken down into 3 different categories, but you need a minimum GPA of 2.5 in those courses. So again, but you could get 45 points there for the high science GPA and a high science, non-science GPA and then if you had a previous degree. So again, you could be up to almost 50 points between those things so far. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide. TEAS testing. TEAS is a test of essential academic skills, and it's worth 30 points. Again, all nursing schools use the TEAS test. The TEAS test is based on your general reading, math, science, and English at the high school level. Now, sometimes this can be a challenge. I think sometimes, again, the language component can be a challenge for the refugee or population to some extent. Math scores are normally not, and science probably not so much either. But sometimes, again, you may got to make sure that your English speaking and reading skills are at the level that they should be at for your testing purposes. And the test this is made out by or produced by a company called ATI. I just had a meeting with the representative from ATI this morning, and we use ATI products. And again, it's an essential part of almost every nursing program. The ATI TEAS test is really only to predict success in the first semester of the program, but we all use it. And again, if you score less than 62%, then you have to remediate. So, and we have different sources in terms on our website where you'll be able to remediate. One change I'm getting ready to make here early in this spring is update the TEAS information on our website. They're coming out with an updated test this summer, so it will be a little bit different. So again, these slides will be tweaked a little bit in the future. So I would encourage you to look at the website, the nursing, and there'll be information on there about TEAS. It's not changing too much. But again, it was the state chancellor's office that determined its cut score. So if you score less than 62% on the TEAS test, you must remediate. So again, if it was in science, we would ask you to, again, go to some resource and improve your science scores on this test. And a remediation, that's one thing we're going to be changing and making it maybe a little more user-friendly for students. So yeah, this is going to change a little bit. So we won't spend too much more time on that, but it is something you can buy a study guide. I encourage every one of you to do that and to really start looking at those categories and kind of find the area that you're weakest in and really start putting some energy in that. You can take another class if you want to, or again, there's a lot of resources out there. You can just Google ATI TEAS and again, learn all the different resources for improving your scores. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Relevant healthcare certification. So again, if you come into our program with any of these clearly identified certifications, then we will give you 5 extra points. The reason for this is, again, just like when I started off this conversation and saying that some people come into our program really having no idea what nurses really are or kind of what they're getting themselves into, that I actually have to touch people and deal with body secretions. So, but if you've been a licensed vocational nurse, if you've been a paramedic, a respiratory therapist, occupational therapist, any of these kinds of things, a medical assistant, we will give you extra points, 5 extra points to say, we think that you pretty much do have a good understanding of what you're getting yourself into. So you're a safe bet. So we give you 5 extra points. People send us, they put all kinds of things in this that are not necessarily certifications. So we do look at these, the odd things that are not necessarily certifications, and make a determination that it is or is not within the realm of what we would consider. So there's a little bit of wiggle room on this one, but we want you to have had some hands-on actually working with people. A volunteer like the Candy Stripers or some of those kinds of things where really you're helping a nurse or sitting at a front desk in a hospital and directing people. That isn't really what we consider to be relevant healthcare certifications. So we do make some determination on some of these things. Some are very clear cut, some are not so clear cut. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Life experiences. We give this to everybody. Almost every community college student has some challenges. Many of you probably would fall into potentially, and I'm making a general statement, maybe the first generation to attend college, and particularly college in America. That most of our students need to work. Most of them have, personal and family situations, and then there's the refugee status. So again, when we looked at this when we first started, again, it was very hard to qualify what everybody's individual circumstances, and we needed people to attest to it. And really about 90% of our students were claiming this. So we kind of got to the point where we said, we're going to give it to every single student. So everybody gets 5 points in this category. If you're a veteran, then we have to have or an honorable discharge or an eligible spouse of somebody who is honorably discharged. So again, we give additional points to a person in a veteran status. And if you're proficient in a language other than English, and again, this is something where I would imagine that some of you may be very proficient in a language other than English. We ask that you attest to it and you be able to speak and read another language. You need to, on the forms, clearly identify what language that is and have somebody attest. Again, there's a form that you fill out. You have somebody sign that they are aware that you're able to speak and read in another language, and then we believe you. We get a lot of applications where things are just really, they're incomplete applications. Be sure when you complete the application for nursing school that you go over it or have somebody else go over it and make sure that there's no blanks. Everything is filled out and all the supporting documentation that is needed is there. Otherwise, your application will be basically tossed aside as being incomplete. And we do not call you and tell you that it has been incomplete. And that's just the way it is. So you will just kind of never know. So be sure to have somebody potentially go over it all and make sure that it is complete. Okay, the next slide. So this is, again, the selection process. We open our applications at a particular date. We close it on a certain date. We're going to now, we put everybody's name on a list of paper, just your name, and that's it. We send that to a independent our research office on campus. They have nothing to do with anybody really, but we send that list of names and they're just written down as your application comes in order. And we send that out to the research office and they randomize. And we get that randomized list back, and that is who gets in and who doesn't get in. So all of the names are now put into a different order of, again, based on 1 through whatever. And so the first, 40 people, we'll probably scrutinize 80 applications for our class of 40. Because we know that some of the applications will be incomplete. Some of them really won't match. They will have thought that they qualified and they really don't. So we will process probably every year about 160 applications and make sure and go through them very closely until we fill our classes. And we anticipate filling again the fall class with the first 40 that we find and the spring class with the next 40 that we find. And how it will be done in the future. Okay, next slide. So again, I think we've talked a lot about this. Again, there's a lot of different jobs in a lot of different fields, many opportunities for a nurse once you become a licensed registered nurse. And I think we're getting close to the end. Next slide. Yeah. So who has questions?
And if somebody has a question, you can unmute yourself and ask it.
Or you could type it in the chat if you'd like.
Absolutely. Hello, Professor Peterson. My name is Yana, and I support Career Pathways program at the Rescue Committee, International Rescue Committee. Well, first I want to thank you for, being so upfront about the program, about the expectations, the job in general, ability to prioritize, time manage. So thank you so much for just sharing all of that information with us. And some of our clients are also on the call today. I do have a few questions. The first one would be in terms of, you did mention bachelor's degrees, 4-year college versus associate degree. I was wondering, in terms of employability, what are you seeing currently when the students complete your course? Are they as employable as someone that completed a 4-year degree? What would be the difference? What are we looking at the moment?
They are as employable. And again, the job market's going to be great for everybody. There are certain hospitals like UC Davis, and I think that Kaiser South is also considered themselves magnet hospitals. And with magnet status, then they pretty much want an all BSN workforce. So other than UC Davis, and again, I believe that Kaiser South is, and I'm not even sure about Kaiser South. Kaiser's a different kind of organization, but UC Davis, I know for sure, is BSN only nurses. And again, that's why we have partnered up with Sac State and University of Phoenix and Grand Canyon and some of the others so that our students can pick up their bachelor's degrees fairly easily. Some people though, I mean, again, they're going to be able to, it's going to be a hot job market for everybody. And an associate degree, and American River College graduates have a very good reputation out in the community. So the hospitals in our region know that our students are going to be able to go to work and they're going to be good nurses. So some people, again, you know, it's very, I don't think I'm telling you anything new, that it's very difficult for some of our students to get through school as it is. So there's a lot of times we tell people, don't worry about your bachelor's degree right away. What you can do is just go get a job, go to work. Some of the hospital organizations will then pay tuition reimbursement for people to go back to school and get degrees. So then your hospital will be paying you, you know, tuition reimbursement to go pick up your bachelor's degree later on. I was somebody who went through the LVN pathway. You know, I was a certified nursing assistant, then I became an LVN, then I became an RN, and then through Sierra College. And then I went, got a job, and I worked a long time. And then I decided I wanted to go into management. So I said, well, now I see a reason for a bachelor's degree. So I went and picked up my bachelor's degree, but the hospital paid my tuition. And then years later, I went ahead and went back. I said, oh, I think I want to go. I was actually going to go into nursing informatics, not education, but I went back to UCSF and got my master's degree. So really my career path took me 10 years to finally get my master's degree, but it really did pay off. But I got tuition reimbursement all the way once I got a job as a nurse. So some students, because of their financial situation, is rather precarious, and their responsibilities are so great while they're going to school, that we would say, you know, take your time. Again, one step at a time, and it's okay. Our profession is good with that. It's unique in that way. We want everybody. Again, the push is that people should pretty much get their bachelor's degree, and particularly if they're interested in management or education or some of those kind of things after they've been a working nurse for a while. So there's a lot of pathways, and there's the right one for everybody.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing that. In resettlement agencies, in career pathways programs specifically, we really emphasize client's journey, taking it step by step. Employability is really important. On this call with us today, a lot of our clients that are from overseas, many of them are former medical professionals.
Yeah.
Some of them are combat nurses, some of them are former medical doctors. So and it's excruciatingly difficult to recertify and get.
It really is. Yeah. It almost feels like a barrier for them. I mean, again, I've met a lot of people too who've been physicians and nurses. I mean, I was working with World Relief with a person who was a pharmacist in their native country. And again, there's no easy pathway for those people, and they almost all have to kind of start over, and it's really difficult. I mean, I feel sorry for them. You'd hope it would be a little easier, but the pathway still takes the time, you know?
So absolutely. And so what we usually recommend for a lot of our clients, we recommend alternative pathways. So for example, we recommend certified nursing assistant course. We also have a lot of success with clinical medical assistant course. And once the clients complete the course and they are working in the field, getting those clinical hours, I also noticed that CNAs and CMAs do get those 5 points that you mentioned in the presentation. So and now a lot of them are interested in that next step, whether it is LVN or registered nursing. So again, such helpful information for us. I do have a question. My understanding that the program is really competitive, and you mentioned 40 and 40. We do know, Olga, I know we spoke about it, that Sacramento City College also offers registered nursing course. I was wondering, do colleges communicate? So those students that, let's say, did not get into program associate degree in registered nursing with ARC, is it possible to have them referred to another one, or is it just something that we can suggest?
We're completely independent, to tell you the truth. And actually our multi-screening criteria, the points we give at Sac City is different than the points we give at American River College. I was part of that original research, again, gathering the data and really analyzing it, looking at it. And it was funny to me at the time, I was actually quite shocked that the two college presidents, Sac City's president and our president at the time, allowed us to kind of go different directions. You'd think since we're in the same district, that we would use the exact same point system on the multi-screening criteria. So our multi-screening criteria is exactly the same, the elements, but the points we give are different because the research at Sac City showed that their student population was slightly different than our student population. So the weightedness of things is slightly different. But again, when students apply to American River College, they also have to apply to Sac City College. Now, everything will be very, very similar. So it's not too big of it's not that much more work for the student to apply to both places. I always tell students, you apply to every college you can drive to. If you can drive there good in a day, don't be so I've got to get into AR, I've got to get into this place or that place. You apply to as many as you can. So the directors from the different colleges, we talk to each other to some degree. Not so much, we just don't have time or the need. Again, with 440 applications, we can barely keep track of our own stuff. But we do kind of ask that people, we know our students applied to the multiple programs, and the students, I mean, I got a call from somebody earlier who just got into our class, and the person said, I got accepted into Sac State and I got accepted into you guys, and you guys are much cheaper. So again, talk to me about that. And I think that the person did make a decision to come to AR because again, we're a lot cheaper pathway for them. We just asked them they would let the other school know that they're not going to come so that we'll free up a space in time for the person who's hoping to get in, will be able to get in. After the first day of class, if they don't come to the orientation, they're not. Again, we had our orientation December 13th for our new class coming in spring. And if anybody who didn't show up, they're off the list. And we invited 8 alternates to come. So the people, and we had at least 2 people that day who didn't show up. So 2 alternates get in. We do everything we can to get in 40 students and fill the class. And there was other alternates. I said, you've got to do first day and second day. If you're not at either one of those, I can't let you in. And again, after the first day, the students are studying. They have about 2 weeks worth of work before the first day of school. So they're doing work to be prepared for testing and stuff right away. So we don't wait a day and then say, oh, we don't call people up and say, oh, no, come on down. We had some people drop. And there's Sierra College, and again, a lot of programs in our general vicinity, but it's tough. And the other program I wanted to mention when you talk about people with healthcare backgrounds is our healthcare interpreting program. I kind of push it, we have it in our division. And again, people who are very proficient in second languages, certainly the populations of your students are populations of people out in our hospitals who need interpreters. And there are businesses that, they pay really good hours. It's just you're not necessarily, don't have a guaranteed hour. But, if you go into a hospital and do a medical interpretation with a physician doing like a surgical consult, or somebody with cancer and needs good explanation on their chemotherapy and all that stuff, they might get paid $150 an hour for that kind of work, but it's not going to be a 9 to 5. But that's a good thing for a student in a nursing program. Again, I can go work a few hours here and there and make maximum money. And again, they already have the skill set, being very proficient. They have to be very proficient, and it's a 1-year program. Mm-hmm. That's within our division. So healthcare interpreting, it's again 1 year. They have to be proficient in writing and reading. And then we would certainly give that person credit. Again, that's not on that list of people who'd get credit for, but we certainly would give credit to people with that background. So I always mention that, particularly because I would think that most of the people in your organization have multilingual skills.
Absolutely true. Well, thank you so much. That's very informative.
Yeah. And Yenny Lopez is the director of that program.
All right, Susan, I have a few questions that people sent before the workshop, so I'm gonna kind of list them off one at a time. So one is, you mentioned about a bridge program to potentially Sac State. So what if somebody got their RN degree, AS RN degree from not ARC or outside of our district? Can they still come to ARC and do that bridge to Sac State, or how does that?
No, Sac State has a relationship with, they take 15 students from us, 15 students from Sac City, 15 students from Sierra College, and I think they've included Yuba now also. And they take them in after they've completed their second year. They can apply. So they start the summer between their first year and second year with us. So again, they've got the pathway very well laid out, and it's very good, but the relationship is really, it has only been with the 3 colleges, again, Sierra, Sac City, and AR, and I think this year we've included Yuba for the associate degree students.
All right. Next question is, what is the difference between LVN and RN?
We do have an LVN to RN bridge program. So we have a course, Nurse 305, and we do it every summer. We accept 10 students who are LVNs into that program. And they do that. It's about I want to say 8 to 10 weeks in the summer. They would spend, I think it ends up being 12 days in the hospital, 2 days a week for 6 weeks. And then they enter into the 3rd semester and 4th. So it's it's about a full year, 1 year bridge program.
And is there an application for that, or is it just whoever gets into the class?
There's an application, and it will be open in February sometime. And again, we do the same kind of a selection process. We do give veterans preference in that program because the Board of Registered Nursing says we must take care of veterans. So we do have some veterans. I know I have one that I promised a slot to in the summer program. So I'll be taking 9 other people into that program. That's, to tell you the truth, that's one of our hardest groups. And the reason is because they're earning a living wage. So none of them want to quit their day jobs. They all want to just keep, it's really, when you get pushed up against making some money and going to school, it's really difficult to sacrifice for people. So you take and again, the LVNs, their bosses love them. And it's like, will you work overtime? Will you work a double? Will you do this? And they're all good employees. And they're not used to saying no. And so we have a high failure rate within that group. And it's only because, in my opinion, they don't devote the time and energy they need. So, but it is there and available for them.
Yeah, thank you for that. All right, so then the next question, if somebody has or let's say we're talking about the ones who are going to be doing pre-nursing right now and doing the prereqs. Let's say they get their AA degree or AS degree, what would be a good degree for them to get?
It doesn't matter so much. What are you saying, an associate degree in science?
Yeah.
Versus an associate degree in something else?
I don't know, let's say like a degree in biology. I don't know,
it doesn't matter.
Okay, as long as they've
got a strong science background.
Okay.
Again, that's kind of, again, we find, I don't know, science. I was one of those students. I was just a little bit of a squirrel in my young age, and I'd take chemistry and I'd think, oh gosh, Krebs cycle. I thought, oh brother, I just memorized things to pass the test. And then I became a nurse, and I realized, boy, I wish I knew more about the Krebs cycle. I wish I knew more about some of that science that I memorized for, but didn't really necessarily understand as well as I could have. So the people with strong science backgrounds will do better. A good, background in anatomy, physiology. When I asked experienced nurses who've been working a while if they could go back to college, what 2 classes would they take over? At one time, American River College was thinking of offering like courses to working nurses. And So I worked on that for a while. So I did some polling, and the two classes that most nurses said they would love to repeat over were physiology and pharmacology. Because again, if you have a good understanding of physiology, particularly anatomy, I mean, again, look it up. What's that bone called? It's not that big of a deal. We know it's there. But physiology, how the body works, nurses, when a person's condition begins to change, we can anticipate what's going to happen next, and we can get in front of it. So you quickly come to the realization, working in an ICU or some of those things, that a cascade of events that are coming, and then you can take care of it. And pharmacology, again, the whole field of pharmacology is huge. And one of the highest risk things we do in nursing is give medications. So again, the working nurse realizes, I wish I knew more, paid more attention in physiology, and I wish I had a better understanding of pharmacology. So, but we don't offer, our students don't take a separate pharmacology course. We do have medical terminology, and if students are waiting, again, that's another, it's not a prerequisite, but it certainly benefits the students to take medical terminology. If they went into that is one course that is a prerequisite to the healthcare interpreting program, is medical terminology. And again, it really does help people, but we don't make it as a prerequisite. Yeah.
Thank you. Just two more questions. For the languages, you mentioned 5 points for being able to speak and write in the language. Is it like a set 5 points or 5 points per language?
I think it's just once. I know it's sad. I mean, yeah, you'd think I should get 5 points for every language, because other cultures have so much. And when we say multilingual, they're really multilingual, not just English and Spanish, say, like the average American. It's kind of sad. Yeah.
And then also for the points, when you were talking about the science prereqs and then the non-science prereqs and the GPA, so let me just make sure that what I understood is what you said. So yes, they want to get all A's if possible, but the maximum amount of points is not necessarily for the A's. You mentioned something like a 3.5 would still get you the max points, right?
Yeah. Let me look at my form and I can tell you exactly.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, the goal, of course, is the all A's, but it's just if somebody has, let's say, a B in one class, then I wouldn't want them to be discouraged too.
Yeah. Here we go. Okay, let's see. So if you have a 3.3 to 4.0, you get those 30 points in the science.
Okay.
And then 3.0 to 3.29 is the 15 points. And the non-science, it's 3.5 to 4.0 is the 15 points. 3 to 3.49 is the 10 points. And 2.5 to 2.99 is the 5 points. So that's the point breakdown with science and non-science GPAs. And this form that I'm looking at is on our website. The multi-screening criteria, it's there.
Okay, thank you. And then for the random selection process, so you mentioned you get the 400 something applicants, and is it the first, let's say 100 or however many you process that are qualified, or you process all 400 and then of those you do the random thing?
Well, what we do is, again, there's a date that the application process opens and a date that it closes. As each student drops off their application or we receive it, and we'll be kind of post-COVID, a little bit post-COVID, I could say, we'll be changing that process. So people need to look at that. But however we get the applications, it doesn't really matter so much. Their names will all be put on a list. And it could be a different list, but at the end of the day, we're going to put them all the names on one single list. And then we send that to the research office. The research office takes that one list and randomizes it. And that puts people in a rank order, but it is not first come, first serve. So somebody could have put it in, submitted their application on the very last day, and they could still end up number one. But
Okay,
we then, Yeah, and then we sort through them, and then we are going to look at, again, they're now in rank order basically, and we're going to process as many as it takes to fill up the 2 classes.
Got
Yeah.
it. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
In the past, this last time, our admin did process all 440 applications, which is very, very time consuming. And we have to stop that. We can't- I said, we can't keep doing that. And we called them all and said, you're missing this, you're missing that. There's the reason you didn't get in. There's a lot of bickering. We said, no, we are, nobody else is doing it like that. It's been a great service to students, but at the same time, it's just unmanageable. And we were the only ones still doing that kind of thing. So we will stop because it benefits very few.
And then the 40 students per class, is that set by the board? Like how?
No, and again, we're greatly challenged in nursing these days to get nursing faculty because the nurse can make so much more money in a hospital working than they can teaching for us. So it's really a challenge these days to get nursing faculty. We can only have 10 students at a time in a hospital setting. So in those 40 students, I need 4 faculty to go into a hospital because each of those 4 faculty can only have 10 students with them in the hospital. So our student to teacher ratio is very low. And so we're a very expensive program on a college campus that, can have sometimes, 100 kids, I say, but people in one class. So we lecture to all 40 students in one class. They get the same didactic experience as each other, but they each have their own individual clinical faculty.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think these are all the questions that people asked me so far. So if anybody else has questions, unmute yourself, put your questions in the chat.
Well, it's been nice talking to you. Oh, I guess another thing I should say in this COVID world is the hospitals are not, Kaiser will not let a student into their facility who has not been vaccinated. So even the people who our colleges will give religious exemptions to, our hospital settings will not. Some will, some won't. But so I'm having to tell a lot of students these days, and now today on the news, it was talking about the booster. So the majority of our students have been COVID vaccinated. Some have taken a leave, hoping it'll all go away, I suppose, because they don't want the vaccine. But again, our PEDS and our OB rotation in second semester is at Kaiser facilities. So if the person refuses to get vaccinated, I can't let them in the program. The same holds true for our CNA programs, is the skilled nursing facilities will not accept any healthcare workers, including students who are not fully vaccinated. So that is a stumbling block that none of us ever anticipated. And I don't, again, my personal opinion doesn't matter. I think I don't care for it much, but it doesn't matter. I have to apply the rules, and the rules are that. So I called a student this week, and she said, no, I don't want to do it. And okay, well, I can't have you here. If the students in that situation are allowed to be out 1 year, and then they're going to have to completely reapply or reevaluate. And this is a student who's halfway through her education. And I have another one who's making up her mind right now what she's going to do about that. So that is a very serious ramification. And I know that, again, a lot of people are not comfortable, and I support students who are uncomfortable, but at the same time, we can't allow them. We haven't come so far as to say that we're not allowing them. The directors in the different programs, healthcare programs across the Los Rios district, I've been in meetings with them, and pretty much all the directors would say it would be an easier thing if we just said they have to have it to be in our programs. And again, we didn't let anybody come to orientation if they didn't produce their COVID card or their exemption status and negative test results. So our students who if the hospital will accept their religious exemption, they're having to be COVID tested twice weekly. So it is a huge challenge for all of us. So I just want to put that out there so that people understand kind of again. And again, the governor said that today or yesterday that they're, again, everybody's going to have to now have a booster, which is a nightmare for me because I'm now going to have to ensure that all 120 students get a booster shot, which was hard enough to get them the regular shot. So we'll see. But the hospitals, we have to do what the hospitals tell us to do because we're guests in their facilities. So they kind of take, if their rules are stricter than the colleges, we have to go by them. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Last chance for questions.
Well, I hope to see some of you and we wish you the best, and I'll say Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you so much for presenting. This is very, very informative. You answered a lot of our questions. Okay, sorry, last question. I just remembered.
That's okay.
So I know that some students who originally have the goal of going into nursing, they end up in the ARC respiratory care program. Can you mention anything about that?
I don't know too much more, again, when I can't tell you how long the program is or anything. Lisa Aiga is the director of that program. As a working nurse, and particularly in the ICU environment, I work beside respiratory therapists, all the time in hospitals, and they kind of do what they do, and I'm happy they do it. But it's a little different role than nursing. And I think the pathways may be a little bit easier, but I can't really speak to it too much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right, well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop this